Yeah, Chris, brother, let me tell you. I know exactly why Javen was in my comments last week during my recap of week 1 of Love is Blind season 2. Shameless plug, but seriously, he was in the comments for a reason. And now I know why. What? Y'all want to know why too? Just wait for this intro to end and then I'll tell you guys. All right, so back to what I was saying. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real recap and review for Love is Blind UK Season 2, Week 2, Episodes 5 through 8. Netflix did a little switcheroo on us because Week 3, which is the final week for Season 2, has Episodes 9 and 10. Episode 9 was supposed to be included in this week's episodes, which leads me to believe maybe the weddings don't go according to plan for the final week of this show. But hey, we will cover that, and we're covering Week 2 right now, so if you don't want to miss out, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, help us get to 30,000 subscribers, and like this video. Get loud in the comments and let me know. What do you think of Javen and Katisha and all that drama? Because it was a lot of drama. Now, if you missed my week 1 recap, it is live on the channel, but where we left off was Cal and Katisha having a heated conversation about Katisha and how she treated Demola. So like we always do, we're going to begin this recap with a spoiler-free discussion and then get into my spoiler-filled recap and thoughts. Time codes are below, and let me tell y'all, this is going to be a short spoiler-free section only because I want to get to that drama real fast. Let me tell you, I didn't know Megan was a dancer and a boxer because she was ready to throw hands. Like I said earlier, this batch of episodes, 5 through 8, are, well, shorter than I expected, but much better than week 1. And when I say short, I mean like one of the episodes is not even 40 minutes long, technically. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it was episode 5. And I thought, man, this is not boding well for this week. No, on the contrary, it actually boded very well. Man, let me tell y'all, this week was so much better. I mean, I felt the editing was snappier. Was it, it didn't need to bring me better music, honestly. Just keep the music where it was in week 1 and I'd be okay, and it did. So I really enjoyed week 2 quite a bit. There were a lot of meet the family moments. However, I will say these moments were a tad bit less memorable outside of only maybe one family meeting. That's maybe where I have like the most criticism to give. Meeting the family moments just felt like they didn't have much substance. And maybe that's why the producers were like, we're skipping that one real fast. Let's just have the mom say this, and then we're skipping over that too, because we cut away from some of them pretty quickly. It felt abrupt, and I didn't know if I necessarily thought these moments needed to be aired, if that's how they were going to play out. But I get why they aired them, of course. All right, the next thought I have here is that, like I mentioned, the drama, it kicked into high gear at the end of episode 7 and into episode 8. This, of course, leads me to believe that maybe we're not getting too much drama in the final week, because if episode 9 was pretty full of drama, they probably would have included it in this week as well, but instead they're making it a part of the last week. Now, on the other side, maybe episode 9 does have drama and episode 10 has like one wedding, and we're thinking, oh great, well this is kind of pointless now. So I'm curious to see why they made that shift. And unfortunately, Netflix will not be providing me screeners for episodes 9 and 10 because I don't know. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe episodes 9 and 10 are super dramatic and they will have something that happens that they don't want revealed prior to them dropping on Netflix. I mean, I'm not breaking embargo anyway. No spoilers. If they ask for me not to spoil anything before it goes live, I'm not doing it, which is why this video is dropping so early. But yeah, I would say week 2 is definitely head, shoulders, and knees above the previous week. That doesn't really work. And due in large part to a former Crystal Palace player. As you all know, I got my Man United jersey on today. Just saying. We don't rock with Crystal Palace, and we don't rock with one of the former players on that team. Just saying. Okay, I can't hold back anymore, guys. So this is your spoiler warning. If you have not watched all of week 2 yet, save this video to your watch later list, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and guys, let me know when you come back what you thought of this batch of episodes, because right now it's time to get into my spoiler-filled recap. I have so many notes. And of course, this week opens up with episode 5. It's only 39 minutes long, which is unprecedented for Love is Blind. And while I mentioned, the editing was pretty good in this week, I had one issue, or the biggest issue, I should say, in the editing department came with the start of episode 5. How are y'all going to leave us on a cliffhanger conversation with week 1 in episode 4 where Cal and Katisha are talking, and then begin episode 5 and you don't really get into that you don't get into that conversation at all. It just goes straight to couples dates on the island of Cyprus. Was that it? Did Cal ask Katisha the question and Katisha's like, I'm comfortable with my decision, and then Cal said, right, and then walked away? I highly doubt that. So what happened? So I was pretty disappointed, but we move. It's time to get into the island dates. And I'm not going to lie, you guys, it's in this moment that I'm starting to grow to like Ashleigh and Billy. They're swimming near a cave. Dangerous, but it seems nice, pleasant, and not cold, unlike their swimming date later on in this week of episodes. But they had a pretty pleasant time. And then you have Kieran and Megan on a boat. It looked nice. Who's paying for this? They do have a conversation, and Megan talks about her past relationships not succeeding because of what she's seen her mother go through. And that kind of tracks as to why she hasn't said I love you yet. It's a big deal for Megan. And Megan at this point has not said I love you yet. She said she's waiting for the right time. So, okay, part of me understands. The other part is like, why would you come on Love is Blind if you need more time? The point is an expedited dating scenario. You know what you're signing up for before you get on the show. But she needs more time. All right. Is that somewhere in the contract? So now we're checking in on Cal and Sorover, and here comes Cal again with his nonsense. He brings up once more that he's only dated white British girls in the past. I literally wrote in my notes, boy, bye. Like, what are we doing? Cal, enough is enough is enough. Sorover doesn't want to hear about your past types. You put a ring on her finger, so now she's your one and only type. Am I wrong? I just wish Cal put as much effort as he does into talking about himself and others as he does about talking about Sorover. But let's put a pin in that, because that might change later on in this recap. And now we're going to check in on Jed and Barda. They're on an ATV date, and Barda's driving, I think. And I'm pretty sure Jed is in the passenger seat and thinking like, oh my gosh, I want to drive so bad. I don't want to give up control. Sorry, homeboy. Barda's wearing the overalls in this relationship now. Jed does mention, though, that he's not built for the woman leading in relationships. And Barda says, listen, I've always led in my past relationships, so get used to it. She doesn't say get used to it, but she says you're going to have to maybe compromise a little. So it will take some time, I'm guessing, for them to figure out this dynamic together. But I'm not going to lie, man. I still kind of like them together. And before the next couples meetup, we do have a few notes here to talk about with Ashleigh and Billy and Cal and Sorover. Ashleigh and Billy are jumping in the pool, and guess what they got on? They have clothes, don't worry. They also have a pink cowboy hat on. They love their pink cowboy hats. Who put them up to this? But Billy does have a little mini conversation with Megan from what we see. And Billy said, I'm a little nervous about meeting your dad, Ashleigh. I don't know. And is it justified? We'll get there. And then we got Cal and Sorover, and Cal is giving Sorover a massage. I believe he's returning the favor because he got one earlier. And I wonder how that massage went. I bet Cal whispered in her ear and said, hey, you know what my type is? Oh boy. Alrighty, so it's time for couples meetup number 2, and this happens on the final day in Cyprus. Of course, there's a heavy emphasis, at least at the start, on Javen and Katisha, and they already sound like they're tapping out. I don't know. It feels like when Matt and Emma Willis are there, they're asking everybody how you doing, and Javen and Katisha just, I don't know. At this point, I was already thinking, yeah, it's probably over here. I don't know. So they asked Javen how he's doing, and Javen, like Megan, said he needs more time before he says I love you. Again, I pose the question to you now, Javen. Why would you come on the show if you need extra time? Y'all know the timeline. You don't just sign a piece of paper before you know how long this process takes. It's expedited. If you needed more time to say I love you, you probably wouldn't come on the show. And then we have Cal pressing Javen again about the whole Demola situation. This man is obsessed. And I say, if only he rode this hard for Sorover like he's riding for Demola. I mean, bro, give it a rest. But in a way, it will not rest. We're going to bring up Demola again, guys. And then I have some notes about Ashleigh and Katisha's conversation, because Ashleigh tells Katisha that she's worried Javen hasn't told her I love you. Ashleigh has a tissue in her purse for Katisha because Katisha does start crying. And let me tell you, Ashleigh was one step away from being that grandma that's got candies in her purse. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Like the peppermint candies? That's like, I remember this growing up. But yeah, I think Ashleigh is that contestant on the show that the girls do confide in and talk to one-on-one. So she does get some more FaceTime with the other women of the house or of the show. And the other women tend to spill a lot to Ashleigh. So now that we're done with Cyprus, which is the island of love, apparently, we're back to Manchester, guys. They're spending 3 weeks together living in an apartment. Nothing can go wrong. I'm terribly lying about that because things do go wrong. But let's start with a couple who seems to be getting stronger with every passing scene, and that is Megan and Kieran. However, in this instance, they're going through each other's Instagram feeds because everyone gets their phones back. And, see, Megan and Kieran tend to reveal a lot on their feeds. And no, I'm not talking about the food they eat. I'm talking about them. And yep. No, that's not PG, I'll tell you that much. And then we check in on Jed and Barda, and they do have a cute cooking moment together. Listen, at the end of this recap and review, I'm giving you a power rankings, and Jed and Barda just seem to be going up my power rankings every time I talk about them. They're nice together, it seems. So then we got Javen and Katisha. Well, this segment cuts to them sitting in the same room, but Javen is at the table and Katisha sits on the couch. The editors are messy because they know exactly what they're doing. They're setting up this couple to be the one that ends early. And do they? Yep. But we're not there yet, you guys. Katisha does bring up how she's very bothered still about this whole Demola situation and how the others are viewing her. I know earlier she had mentioned to Ashleigh she doesn't want to be viewed as the villain. So she's playing a little bit of defense here, right? But I'm not so sure at this point that Katisha can get over the whole Demola situation. I will say, Katisha, you kind of created this Demola situation yourself. To be fair, you told him not to worry, but then he had to worry because you moved on. Katisha does reveal to Javen what she told Demola in the pods, which is, don't worry. I made my decision, don't worry. Javen has this like smirk on every time Demola and the situation comes up. He's always like, don't worry. Yeah, I wonder why he would worry then, or I wonder why he would act this way, or maybe he feels like he's, being chosen because you said don't worry. So yeah, Javen, that man cannot let this go. So let's take a peek into Ashleigh and Billy's time at their apartment, and Ashleigh is a little apprehensive about living with Billy. But that's not because it's Billy, it's because she's never lived with a guy before that she's been romantically involved with and, well, engaged with, because she's never been engaged, I think. So this is a different experience, and I'm curious to see how this plays out. Now we get our first batch of meeting the family moments, you guys. And let's not leave Ashleigh and Billy. Let's stay with them because Billy is meeting Ashleigh's dad, Gwyn. That man's hair is nice, not gonna lie. Curly, blonde. I'm like, brother, were you a surfer growing up? Were you on some sort of ad? I don't know, but it looked good. And Ashleigh's dad is absolutely shocked when Ashleigh says, we're dating. Actually, no, we're engaged and we're gonna get married. That man was about to spit out his ale. See, I said ale, not beer. I'm trying to be good about the whole British terms, Gwyn apparently did not know about the Love is Blind experience before this meeting, which makes sense because that's a lot for anyone to take in, and I don't blame him for being shocked. But then the dad side comes out, and he's like, that's my baby girl. So Gwyn is choking up, talking about Ashleigh, and hey, if you're happy, I'm happy. This is my pride and joy. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to cry, I promise. It was a sweet moment. Her dad eventually approves, and I'm not going to lie. From what looked like it was going to go bad, this turned out to be really nice. So we're back in the apartments now, you guys. I want to talk about Megan and Kieran because of no other reason other than that he made her a bouquet. And I love making bouquets, all right, for my partner. And let me tell y'all, Kieran tried. He tried. I think he needs to follow Flower Academia on social media because that's how I learned how to make bouquets for my girlfriend. And, well, here we go. Megan then drops a bomb and says, Kieran, I love you. And hey, I guess that means they're official because Kieran's got like 500 pounds lifted off his shoulder. So Megan basically is trying to come around on his nerdy ways. I believe they do go and visit Kieran's place too. And yeah, in his place, you see like the computers and all that and the PC and his microphone like this, but he's showing her everything. And she's like, you know what? Maybe I'm getting over the whole nerd side of you because you make money. And then they end the segment with hopping on top of his bed with their shoes on. Come on. What in the white nonsense? Why? Shoes? No, take your shoes off at the front door. House shoes are a different story. You got house slippers? Fine. Your outside shoes on the bed? Bro, I'm throwing that bed away. Come on. So let's move on now to Jed and Barda, and they're sharing a dinner where Barda does explain something that happened to her mother in the past. She unfortunately had breast cancer, but fortunately she beat it. Glory to God. That is such a cool end to that testimony. So I'm happy for Barda's mother, of course, and Jed has no reason but to continue falling more in love with her. And I think I'm noticing he has a certain compliment always for her, and he always says, "You're cute." He says that a lot. If I had $1 for every time he says, "You're cute," I might be able to buy another Manchester United jersey. Alrighty, so now let's transition to Javen and Katisha, because Javen said, let me go actually chat with one of the boys, and he's having a talk with Jed. Javen is saying, listen, I'm just not 100% sure of my decision, and I'm not 100% sure of the fact that I want to marry Katisha. And Jed is probably sitting there thinking, boy, it couldn't be me. He reveals again that the Demola situation has affected his and Katisha's relationship. And I'm thinking, man, you're looking for an excuse. Seriously, Javen, you should have ended it before this if you couldn't let it go but hey, reality TV, right? So now we have Katisha having a chat of her own with Sarover at Sarover's apartment. And I was hoping and praying that Cal didn't come home during this conversation, because the minute he heard Demola, he probably would have, that man would have came up to bat, ready to fight for Demola. But Katisha doesn't seem very confident in this instance that Javen can get over the Demola situation. And Katisha, your instinct was correct. So Javen and Katisha end up having a dinner date later on, and Katisha asks Javen how he'd feel if she let her sister know about everything. And he says, go ahead, tell her whatever. And then shortly after that, Katisha begins to send a text to Demola, if I'm not mistaken. So it was a weird moment, the way that they stacked this scene, but that took a little while for her to send that text. And Javen asks, are you sending him a life story? And I'm thinking, hold up now, hold up, Javen. Don't shade Katisha, because you said go ahead, and you're just letting her, you know what I mean? What are we doing? This is just so messy. Alrighty, so let's move on from one complicated couple to one couple who becomes complicated. See, Ashleigh and Billy I thought were solid, but then they take a trip to a grocery store. They call it a food shop. And I know they didn't go to Publix, because wherever they went, shopping was not a pleasure for these two. My goodness, Billy is a very hard person to shop for. If you look at a Twinkie, that man immediately puts it in flames. Just, no, don't do it. If you think about an Oreo, which I love, if you think about it, he will immediately shoot it down. I don't know. Billy is a hard person to shop for, this guy. I respect his strict diet, but it's almost too strict. I do think it stems from his time in the military, though. So Ashleigh is sitting here thinking like, bro, I can't even get like a slice of cake. And he's like, nope, 600 calories. I'm thinking, okay, you can encourage your partner to eat healthier without stripping away everything. I mean, get a scoop of ice cream or two every now and then. What's wrong with it? So remember this moment, you guys, because it's going to come up again later. Let's move on to another batch of meeting the family moments, this time with Megan and Kieran. Megan is meeting Kieran's friends, and yes, Kieran has friends in real life even though he games, okay? When Megan says she's a dancer, I found this moment to be really funny because all three of Kieran's friends nod their heads and say, nice, cool. And I'm like, y'all get your minds out the gutter. One of Kieran's friends does ask why this has to end in marriage, and I'm like, oh boy, they're starting to grill Megan a little. I mean, I get it, but there's always that one friend in the group that has to be very logical, and that's okay too. That's Jack. That's Kieran's logical friend, and he's trying to put everything into context for Kieran and making sure he's okay because he cares for his friend. And I'm like, you know what? All right, low-key, that's sweet. So now let's go ahead and transition to Jed meeting Barda's family. And Barda's parents seem really supportive. Like, I think that they are some of the sweetest parents on this show. And they, of course, there's like a language barrier to some degree, so they were speaking in Albanian. I thought that was really sweet. And Jed, I'm sure, is going to learn more Albanian for his soon-to-be wife and parents-in-law. Family-in-law. But Jed eventually gets their blessing to marry Barda, and Jed is on cloud 10, not even 9. This man looks like he is so incredibly happy. Alrighty, it's time to move on to Cal and Sarover, because Sarover is meeting Cal's family. Now this meeting in particular is between Cal's nan and mum, like grandma and mom, for those who didn't really pick up on that. Listen, I'm learning too. Cal's mom asks where they'd live, down on this end or the posh end, and I thought that was a little bit of shade. Seriously, the way she delivered it, I'm like, oh, okay. But Cal says they both spoke about split living. And I just don't know how that would work because I think they got to lay their roots down somewhere. Cal's mom does seem very hesitant in this moment, but they both seem to understand and they're happy for Cal. But there's one person who doesn't understand, and that's Cal's brother, who shows up and is like, alright, what's going on over here? Cal's brother straight up tells Cal, I just don't think y'all are going to get married. What? He said if he had to bet his life on it, that Cal would say no at the altar. And I thought that was really, really interesting. Whenever Sarover watches this back, I'm pretty sure she's going to be a little sad. Okay, so now it's time to take a little break from meeting the family and get into another conversation, this time between Katisha and Demola. Demola at first seems very timid. Like they're sitting, I believe, in a bar by themselves, and he knows he's in an awkward situation. And I think he's also ready to vent his feelings, which I understand. So it's a lot of emotions in one. Katisha tells Demola that she wasn't quite there with him. But I take issue with this because you told him that you would choose him. That's like somebody saying, I want to marry you. And then you get to the altar and then it's like, oh, I just don't know if I got there with you. But you said you want to marry this person. Where else can you go? You said you would choose Demola. What else is left? Like, of course, Demola's going to think you were there with him. That is weird. But Demola says, let me be mature, and told Katisha, I'll support you if you want to marry Javen. And I think that he's handling this great. He also says, if you're happy, I'm happy. And I'm thinking, Demola, dang, Katisha, you might have picked the wrong person. So they seem to close this chapter between them, and Katisha left him at the bar by himself. It was low-key kind of sad. I'm not going to lie, y'all. That felt like, oh, man. Demola, dang, he's just sipping on his beer thinking like, oh, I'm by myself. It's that song, right? All by myself. Don't copyright me. YouTube, I don't sing well. Okay, now guys, let's get back to our apartment moments, this time between Megan and Kieran. They said, let's actually go out and let's do a dance practice session together. It was like kind of a date. I guess they're rehearsing for their first dance. It's pretty cute. That's all the notes I have. It is pretty cute. I like them together. And then we got Javen and Katisha. You notice this batch of episodes, how it always comes back to Javen and Katisha? Y'all notice that? They're visiting Javen's house, and Katisha said, I can see it, actually. You bringing me morning coffee. And Javen leans over and says, maybe. Bruh, it's over. It's over at this point. What are we doing? Javen then gives pushback on Katisha wanting to eat together every day. Says he has a different schedule, but like, you're married. Breaking bread together is integral to a healthy marriage. Y'all don't want to be together, pray together, eat together. What are we doing? And then I'm not going to lie, there was some weird edit where we were getting a ton of the guys and the girls getting ready, and there was a shower shot of Javen. And I'm like, why producers? I'm not even going to pull it up on the screen. That's nasty. I don't want to see that. Ugh. Alrighty, so let's get back to Ashleigh and Billy. And remember how I said the food shop thing would come back? And it did, because they're debriefing, and it's time to talk about their feelings. No, don't eat your feelings, because Billy will stop you. Ashleigh reveals she was bullied for her weight growing up and told Billy that I don't want to feel guilty for eating sweets, which is how you made me feel, Billy. And Billy said, okay, fine, I'll do my best to get better. But like, are you going to leave your job? I know, it's like the next thing. So now let's check in on Cal and Sarover, because Sarover said, listen, I'm getting blown up on my phone from my mom because she's concerned about this process. And I thought at first she might have been maybe emphasizing how many texts she was getting until, yeah, you hear the phone go off and you're thinking, oh, okay, yeah, she's getting texts, man. And this is happening in real time. So sorry, Sarover. That's a lot. Okay, guys, so let's go ahead and talk about the next round of meeting the family before the Pod Squad party. Jed and Barda are, of course, together again, and Jed is meeting Barda's friends. Unfortunately for Jed, Olivia is not as sweet as Barda's parents. Olivia is protective, maybe a little overprotective with Barda, but I think it's because of Barda's past relationships. And Olivia, towards the end of this, says, all right, well, if you like it, I love it. And if y'all know what that phrase means, that's not good. So I would chalk that up as a loss for Jed. That did not go very well. So let's get ahead now and talk about Katisha meeting Javen's mom and sister. And this was a very short segment, probably because there was not much to glean from this segment at all. The sister of Javen asks if Javen is ready, to get married. And Javen looks around just like that and says, I don't know. I can't, and doesn't even answer, actually. Yikes. Katisha also couldn't really answer what makes them compatible when Javen's mom asked, and that seemed to be a struggle for each contestant this season. I'm not going to lie to you. So nobody really passed with flying colors in that area, but for this particular couple, that's bad. That's a caution flag. And lastly, in this segment, we have Ashleigh meeting Billy's dad, and Billy's dad, well, he revealed a lot, and he said something that made Ashleigh feel like, shoot, what's happening? Basically, Billy's dad said that Billy told him, as long as there aren't any cabin crew contestants, or if I don't end up with one on the show, I should be fine. Well, Billy's dad, hate to break it to you, but Ashleigh's cabin crew. It was a bit awkward, and Ashleigh was definitely surprised in this moment too, because it seems like Billy really has this thing against cabin crew. Alrighty, you guys, now let's get into the Pod Squad party, because this is where most of the drama starts ramping up to an 11. Javen tells Kieran, hey, I'm actually not in love with Katisha. And the fact that he was so definitive about this makes me think you should have left 5 hours ago, dude. But what are we doing? Get off the show. If you don't love her, you gotta leave her. Or actually, did you even have her to begin with? I don't even know. What is up with them? It's so weird, right? But hey, let's make it more weird, because we got some past contestants joining the Pod Squad party, and that is Patrick, who joins the reunion first. But right afterwards, Anu joins the reunion, and I'm here for the mess. Anu actually is saying hi to everybody and curves Patrick so hard, and I thought that was so funny to me. And Patrick's sitting here probably thinking, oh, I felt a vibration, didn't it? I don't even know. That's what he would say. But still, Anu reveals to the women that it was underwhelming to see Patrick in person, and I thought, yo, but that wasn't even the last of it. Instead of splenic instinct, she said he probably trusted his spinal rectum. Spinal rectum? Anu and Javen get pulled for a chat together, and Anu asks why they didn't date more. And Javen said to Anu, well, now that I've met you, I have a different opinion about you. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so here's a list of who's for the streets. And Javen, you've been added. You're for the streets. That's embarrassing for Katisha. Come on. So then to add the cherry on top, Demola shows up to the party. So Javen and Demola have a chat together, and they're ready to put this to bed, right? Demola says, hey, if someone like Katisha can make a split-second decision to turn away from me to go to you, how do you feel about getting to the altar with her? And that's a great question, Demola. But Javen, I think, is going to take this instead to use it as his excuse to leave Katisha. So Demola, you might have just crashed their relationship. Nah, not really. I mean, it was probably over way before this. And hey, we're not done with former pod members. We got Sophie showing up to the party. Sophie, girl, listen, Sophie, you remember that Taylor Swift song? I knew you were trouble when you walked in. I knew she was trouble when she walked in. Oh boy. Kieran is caught chatting with some of the guys and says Sophie's an attractive girl, and I'm thinking, you better watch yourself, Kieran. Don't mess it up with Megan. Don't do it. But Megan sees Sophie, and you just see the lasers coming out of her eyes. Megan and Sophie don't get along. And then Sophie starts commenting on Kieran's jacket and asks Megan, why did you let Kieran wear that jacket outside? And Megan is like, I like it. And Sophie's laugh to that was diabolical. I'm like, oh my gosh, they have beef. So then we move away from that conversation, and then we have Anu and Patrick. They have a quick chat, but man, Anu read him to filth. Anu is airing Patrick out, saying, you're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar. She's like singing, I can't get it that high. But Patrick says, oh, well, it's nice to hear you sing finally. I mean, bruh. And then Anu says, all right, well, I was done reading you, but now I'm going to read you some more. And says, why did you wear that headscarf? And he's like, oh, I kind of like it. And she's like, it looks silly. Why? But why? Why did you choose it? Oh, someone told me it looked good. Well, it doesn't. That's what she tells him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, golly, bro. Yeah, Anu and Patrick don't like each other. So now let's move on to Kieran and Megan's conversation, because Kieran is telling Megan something that I felt like he probably should have just kept to himself. But he said he's confused about what he's heard about Sophie, because based on his experience with her in person, she seems sweet. Megan says, you haven't seen the sides of Sophie that I've seen. And Megan is laughing it off in this instance, but I do think she wanted Kieran to reassure her a little bit more. But don't worry, because Sophie comes out of nowhere and says, hey, you know what? Kieran's really not my type. So much for that. There's going to be no home wrecking there, I would imagine. But Sophie then starts eyeing another man, and that's Javen. Sophie says she didn't see Katisha and Javen as a couple anyway, so what happens next? Well, Javen pulls Sophie for a chat. Notice that it wasn't Sophie that pulled Javen for a chat, it was Javen who pulled her for a chat, and I'm thinking, this is bad. So they're going towards the bar, and Javen's like, you want to sit? And Sophie says, no, I can't sit. And he's like, why can't you sit? I'm like, oh, you're so disgusting. And then Sophie says, well, I can't sit because everyone will see things they shouldn't be seeing. And Javen says, takes a sip and says, no comment, as he's smirking. Gross. Sophie asks Javen if he thinks he made the right choice, and Javen basically says no. So you would think at that point, Javen would be like, you know what, this is enough, I need to leave. But no, he continues the conversation. He asks Sophie, are you dating anyone right now? And Sophie says no. And then they have a giggle together, like a loud giggle. And it was like much more laughter than Javen's ever had with Katisha, and that's not good. So I can see where this is going from a mile away. And then Javen says, well, there's still more to unpack. And I'm thinking, what else is there to unpack? Listen, Javen and Sophie might have been made for each other, because if they're entertaining each other while Javen's engaged, for the streets, I'm just saying. Oh, but don't worry, it doesn't end there. As Katisha is getting disrespected, Javen asks how far Sophie lives from here, and she says only like about 5 minutes. And then he says, you're naughty. Disgusting. I'm mad for Katisha here. And to top it all off, Javen is meeting Katisha's family the next day. Oh boy. So Katisha and Javen have a conversation back at their apartment after the party, and Javen says that his chat with Sophie was interesting and that they had good banter together. Yeah, Javen, keep going. Yeah, make Katisha feel great. You know what I mean? This is man for real right now. But I do think this was probably the straw that broke the camel's back for Katisha, but she was still trying a little bit. I don't know what it is. Javen says, you know, he's going to go out after Katisha said, I'm going to bed. And I just thought, man, this is weird. But when Javen calls one of his boys on the phone, the subtitles said, hey, we're at a club called GAY. That's what the subtitles said. And I'm thinking, what the heck is going on here? What are we doing here? What? I mean, I don't know. Katisha, girl, when you watch this back, let us know what's going on. Alrighty, so now we're done with that for the time being. We're going to get back to our apartment moments with Megan and Kieran. Megan starts planting some seeds for a later conversation that comes at the end of this week's episodes, and she says, hey Kieran, I didn't appreciate Javen's behavior, being all flirty with the girls last night. Megan then says Javen took a girl into a photo booth. And the girl's name was not Katisha, clearly, because Katisha went to bed. Oh boy. Well, we'll dive more into that in a little bit. But let's now move on to Jed and Barda, because they go into Jed's house, and Barda immediately is looking like at the PS5 on the table and says, is that decoration? And Jed is like, oh man, I game. Hey, Kieran does it. Why can't I? And the last note I have in this section is Cal and Sorover, because Cal says, I'm starting to doubt our relationship a little bit because, hey, Sorover, your parents aren't on board yet. Oof. Yeah, oof, boy, oh boy. Alrighty, okay, who's ready for more meeting the family moments? Because we got Barda meeting Jed's parents. That can only go well, right? Jed's mom does seem sweet right away, but then says, alrighty, time to start grilling a little bit. And we're not talking about food. No Lebanese food here, guys. Instead, she's like, this is happening all too quickly. This isn't normal. I don't know if I'm okay with this. And Jed's dad is in the background saying, hey, y'all make each other happy. I'm happy. That's all I got. I know that car ride home was something. Alrighty, now it's time for Javen meeting Katisha's family. And hey, Katisha's siblings are so unserious, but it is funny. And then Javen and, Katisha's mom have a quick chat. And then after that, he goes to the trampoline. And then it's Katisha and her mom having a chat. Katisha's mom says, hey, well, does he treat you like a queen? This and that. And I'm starting to think Katisha's already out of here. I think she's 1 foot out. I mean, come on. Godly. I wonder if Javen walked into this family meeting looking at those kids and said, ooh, how am I going to disappoint these kids? Hate to break it to y'all. He does. Alrighty, so now we got Ashleigh meeting Billy's mom and sister. And wow, Billy's mom loves Ashleigh. Super sweet moment, honestly. And Billy tells, everyone that we're engaged, this and that. And then they have their own conversations. And while this was a shorter segment, Billy does have a one-on-one conversation with his sister and says, I'm really worried about Ashleigh's job. And I don't know what I'm going to do if we make it to the altar. Billy, what's happening here? And then we've got Cal meeting Sorover's family finally. And Sorover's mom is intense. Boy, oh boy, I was sweating. And I put Old Spice deodorant on too. And I'm thinking, boy, Cal's nervous, I'm nervous. It's going terribly at the start, to be completely honest with you. And it is the most awkward family meeting, at least for the first half, that I can remember in recent Love is Blind history. Sorover steps in and says, you know what? Fine, I'm gonna tell you what I feel, Mom. You gotta trust me. Trust the process. I love Cal. Cal loves me. Help, let me make a decision, Mom, finally. And this is all happening as Sorover's mom is probably about to send another text to her and realizes, oh shoot, my daughter's in front of me. And Sorover's mom, in a wild turn of events, says, you know what? This gives me reassurance that Cal is all in with Sorover, so I'm giving you my blessing. And I'm super shocked at this point, and so are they. It went from the most awkward family meeting to a pretty sweet moment, and it was tender at the end. All right, cool. Good for them. But you guys know we can't just have a sweet and tender end to this week. We need to get into some more drama because Katisha and Megan have a one-on-one conversation. And Megan says, I'm a girl's girl, and I'm going to ride for my girl, Katisha. So Megan says, hey, Javen did go out that night as Katisha knew, but here's what you didn't know, Katisha, that Javen went straight to Sophie during the after party and they went into a photo booth together. But hey, Megan said, I didn't see a photo. Ooh. She said that Javen also went to go talk to Yolanda and then Anu, and Katisha is mad, making noises like, huh? Oh my gosh. Megan says that Javen told her something weird, that Yolanda makes him happy, Sophie makes him happy, and Katisha makes him happy. And just like that, Javen is Amish. Because you can't, what does he want, multiple wives? What are we doing here? So this can only go one way. It went poorly because Katisha and Javen then have a conversation themselves. But as this conversation is happening, Katisha's packing up her bags. She said, to the left. All right, it's time. Come on. I mean, I don't blame her, to be completely honest with you. She says, I want to go home. She didn't say she wanted to leave him entirely, but she just wanted to go home. So Javen catches all this and says, yo, what's going on? What's happening here? What do we got over here? And he tries to defend himself, but he's doing so poorly. So I hope this man did not play defense at Crystal Palace because he's not good at it. So he tells Katisha that he was arguing with Sophie, actually, and they were in the photo booth arguing. And I'm like, what the heck? You got to argue with somebody in a photo booth? Also, why would an argument take you to a photo booth? That's like him saying, yeah, I'm arguing with Sophie and it took us to her place 5 minutes up the road. Who's believing this nonsense? And all the while, Javen's got his AirPod in one of his ears. Now, who's he talking to? What music is he listening to? I don't even know. So the scene ends, but Katisha's like, you know what? I'm writing a letter to Javen before I leave. And she puts her ring right next to the letter, and the letter reads like this. At least this is what I can make out. And I quote, I truly wanted this to work. We are obviously more than our mistakes, but I can't marry potential. Oh, dang, Katisha. I'm sorry. All the best, Katisha. And I know that put a dent right in Javen's heart. Yeah, you read that, you got to feel bad, right? Well, I guess I was wrong because Javen reads it, smirks, tears it up, throws it in the garbage, and goes out. Or back to his phone. Probably goes out after, though. But still. So now we're in the home stretch for this week's recap and review, and we get a solo Javen moment, and he's FaceTiming, of all contestants, Patrick. Because Patrick's the guy you want advice from in this instance, right? Wrong. Because Patrick says, hey, Javen, no, bro. Yeah, you were hanging out with Demola and other people. So, like, Javen was trying to use this to clear his name, and instead it actually didn't, because no one denied that he didn't hang out with Sophie. He said Demola and other people. Come on. So we go from splenic instinct to swimming. That was cold enough to probably hurt their spleens, because Ashleigh and Billy jump in this water and it looks so cold. Billy tells Ashleigh afterwards, after they dry off and stuff, that, listen, I'm actually 50-50 on the decision at the altar if we get there. And Ashleigh's thinking, when did this happen? When did the odds shift? My bookie didn't even call me. No, but on a serious note, she was blindsided. Ashleigh's like, hey, it's a huge yes for me right now. And Billy, well, I think he's self-sabotaging this relationship, and we're starting to see the signs. But I won't say that I'm like totally out on them. I think they're still going to make it to the altar. I just don't know how it's going to end up. And then we end this week's episodes with one of the most heated conversations I might have ever seen in Love is Blind history between Megan, Kieran, and Javen. So Javen actually invites Kieran and Megan over to clear the air and try to clear his name. This man is trying so hard. But Javen said, listen, what you said to Katisha, there were some half-truths. And at that point, he lost all credibility with me. Javen is saying, no, I was arguing with Sophie. We didn't want to argue on the dance floor, so we took it to the photo booth. And Megan said, it didn't look like y'all were arguing to me. I have to believe Megan here, because Kieran's also backing this up with this next point. Javen said, there were no curtains on the photo booth. Everybody could see we were just arguing. And Megan and Kieran said, actually, no, there were curtains on the photo booth and they were closed. And Javen's like, no. That's not really a defense. So basically, Javen, you've been caught, and it's getting really heated, and Megan then claims Javen said, hey, remember when you told me that Sophie is someone you'd sleep with and then leave? And at this point, my mind is blown, y'all. Like, whoa, Javen, mamma mia, bro. You better hire a PR agency, because how you going to spin this? And Javen says, you know what? In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have gone out that night. And to me, that's like a loose admittance of guilt here. But Javen still says, like trying to manipulate Megan and Kieran. And then Megan gets up and says, you know what? Have a nice life. Talk to you again. Never, you jerk. But she uses other choice words. And my goodness, you guys, this is crazy. I have not seen a heated conversation in a while like this on Love is Blind. And Kieran does go and comfort Megan. Thank goodness. I thought he was going to hang back with Javen, and I would have said, leave this man right now. What are we doing? And that's how we end episode 8 for Love is Blind UK season 2. So I promised I'd give you power rankings, and here they are before the weddings. We've got Katisha and Javen at the bottom because they're not together anymore. Then we got Cal and Sorover. Not sold on them entirely just yet. At the number 3 spot for me is Ashleigh and Billy. They were my number 1 coming into this week, but Billy seems to be a little too apprehensive now, and I'm not so sure what's going on. Number 2 is Megan and Kieran, and they were more middle of the pack for me, but they seem to be building a strong relationship, and they both got through that conflict with Javen together. So guys, they're number 2. But number 1 is Jed and Barda. I think they're the strongest couple so far this season at this point, and they seem to be getting along very well, even during their little disagreements or where they don't see eye to eye. It seems like they will work over it. So I think Jed and Barda are a lock for saying yes at the altar as of now. And then you got Megan and Kieran. But after that, it's anybody's game. Except for Javen and Katisha, because, Katisha's at home chilling while Javen is still trying to clear his name. But there you have it, you guys. That's my real recap and review of week 2's episodes for Love is Blind UK season 2. Let me know in the comments below what you think of everything we just talked about. And if you haven't already, hit that big red button and subscribe to the channel. Like this video. And hey, next week when we come back for episodes 9 and 10, let's see who gets married, who says I do, or who doesn't even make it to the altar. Maybe they're at the food shop or something. But I'm excited to see how this all pans out. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate all the banter, and I can't wait for more conversations. And let me know your hottest takes down below. Alrighty, y'all. Well, again, thanks so much for watching. God bless you guys, and I'll catch you at the next screening.